Hello and welcome back to the channel. So many of you will have noticed I've been releasing a lot of shorts, which is not something I've done in the past. My intention is to release one every day throughout August to see if it drives a little bit more traffic towards my long form content. If you're enjoying the shorts, let me know in the comments below. If you're not, also let me know in the comments below, as I'm not sure I'm going to continue with them afterwards. They have been useful, however, because it does allow me to show you some of the items that so far on the channel we've not got round to looking at. So today, as is clear from the title of my video, I'm going to show you how to install Windows 3 on your Psion 5. So a Psion 5 is the absolute minimum I would even try this on. In fact, I'm going to use the 5MX. I'm also going to use a netbook just for its bigger screen, and it's much more camera friendly. I guess it could run on a netpad, but not having a keyboard would be a real pain, and there is a version of it for the Revo. Before we get started, a big shout out to Willie Fernando 6616 for his super thanks on the solderless battery repair, as well as Curti Unlisted, Von Rummelsdorf and DigitalDecay.x for their super thanks on the last video, which was on the GPD Win Mini. If you've not seen that, I'll pop a link below. I really do appreciate the generosity of you all, and it does allow me to buy more things for the channel to make better content. And not only that, but we've got 2 new channel members, so please say hello to Chris Groom and Ryan Scott Bale in the comments below. I hope I pronounced your name right, Ryan. Right, let's see about running Windows 3 on a Psion. So you're going to need a few things before we start. To assist you, I've put links below, and for those that are difficult to find, I've actually put them in a Google Drive, and there is a link so you can simply download that content. First of all, you're going to need the XTM emulator. This allows the ARM CPU to pretend that it's an x86 with 2 disk drives. Next, head over to winwillpc.com, as you are going to want some DOS to be running. So I'm using MS-DOS 4.01. I'm also using the 720 kilobyte edition. There are a couple of others, a lot will work, but I'm using this specifically because there's space on the initial disk to add the extras, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. In addition, from what I've read, I don't think DOS versions from 5 onwards will actually work on here. If you know otherwise, let me know in the comments below. You're also going to need a copy of Windows 3 install disks, and again, WinWorld PC can provide you with those. And finally, if you're doing this from scratch, you're going to need to be able to modify those disk images. This can be done under Linux if you are cleverer than me, or you can use WinImage, and there's a link below. If you don't want to download that, that is fine. I've already put a modified disk on the download. Finally, while you can transfer all the files using CyWin, it is much easier if you have a compact flash card, and it'll save you quite a lot of time. If you're unsure on how to format a compact flash card for that, well, here's a video I prepared earlier. Right, other than the machine itself, you've got everything you need. So let's get cracking. So the first thing we need to do is to create a boot disk, or the emulation will simply exit like this. For the boot disk, we are going to modify the DOS setup disk. For our needs, we're going to add a few additional components. In order to do that, you're going to need WinImage. As I say, there is a modified disk image below, so you can skip this step if you want. So open the setup image in WinImage, and then add the epoch fs.sys file. The fs is for file system, and this file allows DOS to access the epoch file system so it can look at C and D drives. Next up is ere directory.x. What this does is allow us to assign a hard disk location, and we can assign a folder to it on the C or D drive. Then there's xtm mouse. This, of course, is the mouse emulation. Now, I haven't got this running, as I say, but I'm going to add it anyway because at some point somebody will figure out what I'm doing wrong. Finally, you need a configuration file. Now, there's already one on the disk, so simply take the one from the image file, pop it onto your computer, change the extension to txt to turn it into a text file, and then we're going to add a single line of text. Device equals epoch fs.sys. And then D or C, depending on your preferences, // and then a folder where you're going to put your hard drive. I've put HDD because that makes sense to me. Once that's done, don't forget to change the file extension back to a sys. I made this mistake more than once. Then pop it back on the disk image. With this done, save it. Now what we're going to do is rename it to drive A, and we're going to change the extension to DSK. We're going to do this for all the files in the DOS and in the Windows folder so that they all end DSK, not IMG, as this allows the emulator to access them. It won't recognize an IMG extension. Now copy your DOS, your Windows, your XTM sys, and your drive A onto the compact flash card. Create the folder that we've said is going to be the hard disk drive, so for me it's HDD, and then create an XTM folder and put drive A.disk in that folder. XTM doesn't care if this is on your C or D drive, it will simply look for it as a root folder. Now you've done that, take that compact flash card and bang it in your Psion. Okay, so that's the hard bit over. For simplicity, I've copied all of this onto the C drive on the netbook, purely and simply because it's easier than messing about with a second compact flash card. So now all we need to do is install the XTM emulator. So simply double tap the sys file, accept all the agreements, decide which drive it's going on, and install away. Now that that's done, if you've set everything up correctly, it should appear on your extras bar, and when you tap it, it should launch that initial disk. This disk is going to want to try and install DOS, and you are welcome to install DOS, but for our purposes, there is no need. So instead, we're going to press Escape. That will take us back to the main menu, and then F3 to go back to DOS, and we will get our A prompt. At this point, all you need to do is press Menu, go to Change Disk, and change Disk A for the first of the install disks for Windows 3. Once you've done that, if you go back to the prompt and type dir, you'll see all the files listed. Of course, we want setup, so simply type setup and it will begin the installation process. From here, just follow the instructions, changing the disks as it asks. I've decided to time it just to see how long this takes. Unsurprisingly, I think the netbook's gonna win by a large margin. So at this point, you might be wondering why I've chosen Windows 3 and not Windows 3.1, or maybe even Windows 95 like we had running on a Pocket PC. So there are some technical reasons for this. The XTM emulator emulates an 8086 CPU. Now it's actually an 8186, which could colloquially be known as a 186. However, Windows 3.1 specifically requires a 286, which is an 8286 CPU, and we can't emulate that, I'm afraid. As for Windows 95, even if you ignore the fact that we've only got a 38 MHz CPU running under the bonnet, yeah, it needs a 386, so we don't have anywhere near enough instructions. And that's it, that's all the hard work done. Now we simply need to load Windows 3. Let's give it a go. Let's boot the XTM emulator and load up Windows. So we'll just let it go through its boot sequence. Escape. You can of course create an actual DOS disk, so it'll simply load to DOS rather than bringing up the install menu. So to open Windows, we need to change directory. First of all, we need to move to the C drive. So it's C:, and that changes the prompt to a C prompt. If we do a dir now, you'll see there's only one folder, which is Windows itself, and we want to go inside that. So we need to change directory, cd, C:, and then a backslash, and then Windows. Now, if we type dir, it should list all the files in the Windows directory, which it does. The one we're interested in is win, which will launch Windows. So just simply type win, and now Windows should launch. In case you're wondering, this is the same 5MX that I used in my short about repairing the touchscreen, and since that repair, it has worked perfectly. So we'll just give it a moment while it renders. And as you can see, we're in. So welcome to Windows 3. There's a couple of things, because the keyboard isn't the same as it is on a Windows machine, you can't actually use the arrow keys on their own. They don't do anything. Instead, you have to press Shift and then the arrow key to move around. You're also going to need a couple of other shortcuts. To bring up the menu on the Program Manager, you're going to want to press Shift and then F10, and this jumps you up to the menu. Holding Shift and using the arrow keys or using the shortcuts allows you then to move through the various options that there are. So if we open a window, let's open Games. Now we've got more than one window open. If we press Ctrl and Tab, it will swap between the windows. Like so. Now we're here, let's open Reversi. So on here we can use the Shift and arrow keys to select the square, and when it turns to an X, pressing Enter will make our move. So as you can see, I'm terrible at this game, so we're going to exit out. In order to bring up the menu so we can exit, it is Shift and F10. That brings us to the menu, and now we can go to the options and move down to exit. From here on, I'm going to swap to the netbook just because it's a lot less laggy. It's much faster because, of course, it's got a much more powerful processor in it. So we're just going to exit out of here, press function F4. If you want it to save you state, leave the box checked, otherwise press S and it'll uncheck it, and then hit OK once you're done. And it exits back out to the C prompt. So let's look at something a little bit faster. So let's continue to have a little bit of a look around. We've got a file manager. This obviously lets us access the hard drive, and A and B, of course, which are our disk drives. So pressing Shift and F10 will bring up the menu, and here we can see we've got various bits and bobs, including copying and labeling disks, formatting, etc, etc. And we can expand the different trees. All the usual things you'd expect from a file manager. So we'll close that. We've not made any changes, but yeah, we'll save that settings. Next up, we've got the control panel. You'll notice we've not got any color, and that's because I've used exactly the same setup as I did for the Series 5 rather than using the Series 7 version, which should have given me some color, I expect. In here though, you can change the settings for how the windows look. Then we've got fonts and ports, so the emulator actually allows you to create 2 ports that you can access through Windows. There's the mouse. As I say, I haven't been able to get the mouse to work. I've tried various settings. Next up, we've got desktop. This allows you to change things so you can have patterns on the desktop if you wish. I haven't actually got any files installed for that, so we'll just leave it. After that, you've got printers, and of course it installed a default printer at the beginning. We've got the international settings, keyboard settings, date and time, and sound settings. In this emulation, sound is rudimentary at best. So we'll close this, which is function F4. And then we've got print manager, clipboard, DOS prompt, and Windows setup. So we can change system settings, set up applications, and there's a help directory as well. If we go to change system settings, there are a couple of options in here. When I changed it last time, it simply crashed the system. So I'm not about to do that today. Instead, we're just going to leave everything as it is. Next up, you've got keyboard options. The mouse options I've tried, there are 3 different options. I've tried them all and run the mouse emulation and it's not working. Let's have a look at accessories. So first of all, we do have a text editor, albeit a basic one. And we'll have a look around. So we've got various options. Here we go, bold. Oh, there is an italic option, underscore, subscript. And then we've got a couple of font options. We can make it bigger and smaller. Font options. And we can add headers and footers. So actually everything you need from a basic text editor right here. Paintbrush. So this is paint, of course. It seems to have popped it up down the bottom. I'm not sure if it's just run out of memory. Control and T isn't cycling through to it. So there is another method to get around this. That is to press Control and Escape. And this will bring up the task list. So for whatever reason it decided not to go to it, but we'll switch to it now. Here we go. Of course, I don't actually have a mouse, so I'm really not sure whether it's even possible to do anything in this. Perhaps you know something I don't, but I think we'll exit it fairly sharpish. We'll just go back to accessories, and we've got a terminal, client, a notepad. I imagine that's just like a very basic version of Write. A recorder. I have no idea if this will work or not. Let's have a go. Yep. Okay, so I can't seem to get that to work. That's fine. We'll just exit it, which is function F4. And now we come to these. So this is a bit of a PIM built into Windows 3. So first of all, we've got card file, which of course allows you to create a database. So you could use this for contacts, for example. There's also a scheduler, calendar, so we can see the different days. And of course, you can scroll through the different days. It would be a lot easier with a mouse. And it's got a couple of views, so let's have a look at those. So we've got a day view and a month view. From here we can scroll around to different days, add an appointment. We also have an alarm option and a couple of other bits and bobs. So we'll come out of that. And we won't bother changing those settings. Of course, we have a calculator. We've got a clock. So this allows you to bring a clock up on your screen. I guess that's handy. And there's always a PIF editor. If anyone knows what this is, please let me know in the comments below. I came to computers just as DOS was beginning to exit stage left, so my earliest memories are really of Windows 3 and 3.1, including reinstalling 3.1 on my mum's laptop and then spending many hours playing solitaire. What's amazing about all of this is that only 9 years later you could actually have Windows 3 running in the palm of your hand. And this is to be repeated throughout computing history because of Moore's Law. In my opinion, EPOC is a vastly superior operating system to Windows 3, and in fact, in some respects, is better than nearly any Windows ever produced. But that's not to say there isn't a lot of joy in emulating old operating systems and playing around with them just for nostalgia or to see how it used to be. Whether you're gaming on the Spectrum emulator, running WordPerfect under DOS, or you've decided to blast some aliens on your Apple II, you can do it all right in the palm of your hand. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you've had a go at this, let me know how you got on. If you get that mouse working, please let me know because that would be very exciting. And also just be a little careful in the system settings, as I managed to crash the emulator more than a few times and then had to reinstall it, which is far from ideal. A huge thanks goes to all the viewers, commenters, subscribers, and of course a special thanks goes to those who leave supers and the members who are directly supporting this channel and allowing me to make what I consider good content. As always, my name's Hugh, this is Handheld Computing. Thanks for watching.